Hi, from BugEyeGuy.com. This car is Dr. Steve, aptly named because it's owned by Dr. Steve. Anyway, this car's got a new shell, a new finish, new cover. All the bodywork's been done, and a little bit dark in here. We don't have overhead lighting in this room, but I want to try and show you some of the imperfections under the paint, so you can see really one of the things that we deal with each and every day with these old cars. It's kind of a challenge in knowing where to stop and what we can take on and what we can't. And it's always a juggling act. Now, I've marked a couple little places here that I don't even think I can show you. There is a tiny divot right there I can't show you because it won't show up on the camera. But what happens is that this sheet metal gets sanded, and then the edge will get sanded. And if you don't take that extra time to fill these last little bits, you end up with occasionally a tiny little depression. And this one had a few more than I was comfortable with. There's another one right, well, I just don't know if you'll be able to see it, but right on the edge there, there's just two little tiny imperfections, and ideally it would all be uniform. See, what happens is when you're working with this material in the primer phase, you don't have the gloss. And when you shoot it, the gloss tends to bring out any of those little imperfections. So the solution would be to sand this and try and take care of those. I don't know if anybody will ever see them again, but I noticed them, and I thought it was appropriate to make sure before we proceed that all these little bits are discussed and addressed, and so that everybody's on the same page. There's also a tiny little crease here, which again, I doubt I'll be able to show you on camera. What you probably can see though is how nice the finish looks. But that little crease is just in the right sunlight sighting down the car. You probably would see it. You might not have seen it if I didn't point it out, but again, ideally on a nice restoration, those issues would be addressed prior to paint. We do have a little bit of a rise up here on the back of the nose, which is common, and we're hoping that when we put the flip forward nose kit in, we'll be able to secure the nose better and take care of that. There is one other thing. This video sort of looks like much ado about nothing, and perhaps it is, but maybe you can see right about dead center in the screen. I have to put the light down and I'll come back to it. There is a tiny little bump right here. It's just a little bit less than smooth, and if you look now with the light at that spot, perhaps you can see it. It's, well, you probably can't, but you just have to take my word for it. It's again one of those sort of optical tricks. There's just a tiny little bit of a rise there, and there may have been a ding or a dent. This is not the nose that came with the car, but there's just a little more sanding work perhaps would have been required. On this side, it looks dramatic because I've flagged it in a bunch of places, but most of these are similarly difficult to find. I think what I was reacting to here is that this is sort of the same thing. It's just slightly less than completely flush. The one thing I do want to also point out while I have a minute is that the back deck, which is one of the hardest, this back area right through the middle of your screen is where they often got tapped. And I'll show you how almost perfect it looks. Same in the front. All around the grill, these got hit. And we got the prep right on that. It just looks